All right, let's get into this. We're about to unpack an incredible story about a high-stakes intellectual showdown right in the heart of ancient Athens. Seriously, it's a story about a master plan that gets completely wrecked, a surprise confrontation, and one speech that just absolutely changed the game.
So our story kicks off with a man named Paul, and he has a crystal clear mission. He's headed for the biggest stage in the entire world, Rome. His path is set, his destination is right there in front of him.
His route was all mapped out. He was on the Egnatian Way, this major Roman highway that was basically a straight shot to the heart of the empire. He was so close he could probably already taste it, picturing himself preaching in the capital in less than a month.
But see, his message about this new king, a guy named Jesus, really threatened the local powers. And his opponents got so worked up, they actually started a riot. And just like that, his grand plan, it was totally upended.
So Paul's friends, trying to keep him safe, basically shoved him onto the first ship out of there. And where does he land? Right here, alone, in Athens, a city that was never ever on his itinerary. But it's about to become the stage for this epic confrontation of ideas.
Now you gotta understand, Paul didn't just end up in any old port town. No, he landed in the intellectual capital of the ancient world. This was a place way more interested in big ideas than it was in, just making money. I mean, he's walking down streets surrounded by these breathtaking temples like the Parthenon, but he's also seeing that the city is just filled to the brim with idols to every god imaginable. The very air here was just thick with debate and all these competing worldviews.
And all that debate, all that thinking, really boiled down to this one central question. It was the engine driving the entire city's intellectual life. And this wasn't just some classroom thought experiment. It was the fundamental question of how you should live your life. And it sets the stage for everything that's about to go down.
So around this huge question, you had these three major philosophical camps form. Each one was offering a totally different answer for how to live.
Okay, so on one side, you've got the Stoics. They believed that divinity was like woven into the very fabric of the universe. It was close, it was personal, it was watching. So for them, the highest goal was to live a good, virtuous life. But on the other side, you had the Epicureans. They argued that the gods were way out there, totally uninvolved. So, hey, why not just focus on what you can actually control, your own happiness?
And then there was this third group, the academics. Following in Plato's footsteps, their whole thing was basically, look, who could possibly know for sure? And to cover all their bases, they even built an altar dedicated to an unknown god. Just in case they missed one.
So into this buzzing marketplace of ideas steps Paul. And he starts talking about this man Jesus and this really bizarre idea of a resurrection. Well, this caused such a stir that the city's leaders decided they had to bring him in for a formal hearing.
They took him right here to the Areopagus, which the Romans called Mars Hill. Now let's be super clear. This was not some friendly debate club at the local university. This was a hearing before the highest court in the city. He was on trial.
And the historical context here is absolutely chilling. I mean, the most famous trial in the history of Athens happened on this exact spot. It's where Socrates was condemned to death. For what? For corrupting the youth with new ideas. The stakes for Paul could not have been higher.
But instead of panicking, standing right there in the shadow of Socrates' execution, Paul delivers an absolute masterclass in communication. He systematically addresses each of these philosophical groups, but he does it on their own terms. First, he turns to the Stoics, the ones who believed God was in everything, and instead of arguing with them, he agrees with them. Get this, he quotes one of their own poets to find common ground. It was a brilliant way of showing he'd actually read their stuff and he understood where they were coming from.
Okay, next up, the Epicureans. Remember, their whole deal was a distant, uninvolved god. So Paul just directly challenges that core belief. He claims that this God he's talking about isn't far away at all. In fact, he's intimately close.
And this next move is just pure genius. He points right to their altar for the unknown god and uses their own spiritual uncertainty as his big opening. He's basically saying, hey, that god you've been hedging your bets on, let me tell you who you've been worshiping this whole time without even realizing it. But then he drops the bombshell, resurrection. Now, this wasn't just a weird new idea. The foundational charter of the Areopagus, their constitution, explicitly said that once a man was dead, there was no coming back. He was challenging the very legal and spiritual bedrock of their society.
So how did the court react? Well, the verdict was basically a three-way split. About a third of them just sneered and laughed him off. Another third were kind of intrigued. They wanted to hear more later. And a final third, including a member of the court itself, actually believed him. There was no clean victory, just this massive collision of ideas.
So, what's the point? Well, this isn't just some story from a history book. It's a really powerful model for how to engage with the world of ideas that's all around us, right here, right now.
See, Paul knew that Athens' core question was happy or good. He listened before he spoke. So the question for us is, do we actually know what the fundamental questions our culture is wrestling with today?
This story really challenges us to figure out where our own Mars Hill is. It's probably not a rocky hill in the middle of town, right? No, it's the places where real conversations about life's big questions are already happening.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. These deep questions, questions about purpose and happiness and what's actually true, they haven't really changed. The world is still asking the exact same questions Athens was asking 2,000 years ago. The challenge is, are we listening?